rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events. This is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, Whiskey Warriors, P1s, and any new folks that are watching. Welcome to American Perspective and happy Armed Forces Day. That's right, today is Armed Forces Day. It is the day that we celebrate those who are actively serving in the armed services. And I think a lot of people tend to mash all of the holidays that we have. They tend to mash them together because oftentimes I see people who are. I see somebody is saying they don't have sound. Do I have sound? Is there sound here? Can you guys hear me? Let me know in the chat. But anyway, as I was saying, a lot of people tend to mash up the holidays. So a lot of people look at Memorial Day and they think, oh, well, that should be a day that we go and, celebrate our veterans. No, that's Veterans Day. Veterans Day, people seem to think, oh, I should go and congratulate a active duty service member. No, that's today, Armed Forces Day. And we need to understand and recognize each individual day as its own holiday because it focuses on individual groups that are very important to our armed services. Now, my buddy, Stephen Stiles, believes that there should be no holidays except for those for the armed services, the veterans, and, of course, Memorial Day, which was Remembrance Day before that. But today is Armed Services Day. So hopefully sometime today, if you ran into a member of the armed services who is currently actively serving, and that's the key, you said Happy Armed Services Day and gave them a thank you in appreciation for their sacrifices in the service of our country. And so, just really quickly, folks, before we get the show started, I give a salute to those in the armed services. Thank you very much for your service, and I do appreciate this. I do appreciate, and even if, some Americans don't, I do. I appreciate all of the armed services, as well as our firefighters and so on and so forth, but they have their own day. All right, let's go ahead and kick things off. Today we have 3 Chevy giving us the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you are of mind, please stand, remove your hat, put your hand over your heart, and join with 3 Chevy in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And, of course, I thank you, 3 Chevy, for submitting that. Hey, listen, if you want to submit and have your voice heard on this program for saying the Pledge of Allegiance, it's easy to do. Just record yourself doing the Pledge of Allegiance. And once you are done with that, send it to me at fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. That's fans at AmericanPerspective.online. And I will, of course, get it into the rotation. As you notice, I went and had to fix my hat. I can never wear a baseball cap backwards. I can never do that. I can never wear it sideways. Just that military thing kind of stuck into me anyway. All right. So let's get on to the next thing, which, of course, tonight I am drinking the Wild Turkey that was provided to me by the Great Whiskey Warriors. And I do appreciate that. And it is being contained by the We the People Lucky Shot USA Rocks glass. Old-fashioned glass, tumbler glass, whatever you want to call it. But there it is in the glass being contained. Let's take a sip. Smooth. Anyway. All right. All right. Now for tonight's sponsor, kind of fitting, I think, anyway. Tonight's sponsor being the Institute on the Constitution, which was established in 2004 as a 501c3 nonprofit with one singular mission, that is to restore the constitutional republic through grassroots education. All courses and materials are developed using primary source documents and taught from the American view of law and government as defined in the Declaration of Independence in the following 3 key points. 1, there is a God. 2, our rights come from him. And 3, the purpose of civil government is to secure and protect our God-given rights. The IOTC offers the opportunity to educate yourself on our most precious founding document, the Constitution of the United States. They also provide tools to educate your community and get involved with local government. Start by taking their free U.S. Constitution course and go from there. Use my affiliate link, iotc.americanperspective.online, to sign up. And while you are there, take a moment to look through their other course material and information. My affiliate link, once again, is iotc.americanperspective.online to get great content to learn about our historical founding and support the show in the process. That's iotc.americanperspective.online. Or if you just want to purchase this fabulous Saddleback leatherbound U.S. Constitution to support the show, go to constitution.americanperspective.online. Check this thing out. It has 1/8 of an inch of Saddleback leather wrapped around the tear-resistant and water-resistant pages, and all bound by a stitched binding rather than glue. It is stitched all the way through. They have a 100-year warranty. 100-year warranty against defects in materials and workmanship. They will, if you have a problem with it, you can send it back to the manufacturer and they will either repair or replace it for free. Go to constitution.americanperspective.online to go get yours today. And while you are around, check out the Institute on the Constitution as well. As always, I thank them for allowing me to be a affiliate and sponsor. Oh, I forgot. Of course. I forgot, folks. This has been buddy tested, buddy approved, Billy tasted, Billy approved, and my youngest whiskey warrior, of course, has verified the information inside will get you your civics badge in Scouts. And according to my Rumble Whiskey Warrior P1s, they are rounded, sexy rounded corners that apparently won't poke you in the butt, at least according to Coco. All right, enough of that. That's great. Okay, let's go ahead and get today's. I gotta move something out of the way here because, trying to get things organized and situated. All right, let's go ahead and get to today's on this day in American history. And, of course, with On This Day in American History, we read from the American Patriots Almanac. That is written by William J. Bennett and John T.E. Cribb. Chock full of all kinds of factoids and information on these great United States. This is a fan favorite segment. So, I need those. So let's go ahead and get going with tonight's piece. Our Constitution is colorblind. On May 18th, 1896, the U.S. Supreme Court handed down a decision in Plessy versus Ferguson, a case that challenged a Louisiana law segregating railroad car passengers by race. The court upheld the statute, establishing the policy of separate but equal public facilities for blacks and whites. John Marshall Harlan, a former slave owner, was the only justice to dissent from the Plessy decision. In the following decades, civil rights advocates often quoted his forceful argument in their quest to end segregation. In the view of the Constitution, in the eye of the law, there is in this country no superior, dominant, ruling class of citizens. There is no caste here. Our Constitution is colorblind, and neither knows nor tolerates classes among citizens. In respect of civil rights, all citizens are equal before the law. The humblest is the peer of the most powerful. The law regards man as man and takes no account of his surroundings or of his color when his civil rights, as guaranteed by the supreme law of the land, are involved. The arbitrary separation of citizens on the basis of race while they are on a public highway is a badge of servitude wholly inconsistent with the civil freedom and the equality before the law established by the Constitution. It cannot be justified upon any legal grounds. We boast of the freedom enjoyed by our people above all other peoples, but it is difficult to reconcile that boast with a state of the law which practically puts the brand of servitude and degradation upon a large class of our fellow citizens, our equals before the law. The thin disguise of equal accommodations for passengers in railroad coaches will not mislead anyone, nor atone for the wrong this day has done. And that, my friends, is On This Day in American History. Wow. To think we have come so far, and then, of course, regressed back to so far away. Because today, the Democrat Party looks and seeks to break apart individuals solely based on their skin color, in the guise of attempting to bring them forward, and in actuality are stating for the record that the soft bigotry of low expectations exists today, completely today. It's very, very sad as to how far we have gone for that. Just absolutely horrible. Absolutely horrible. I'm disgusted at times by the Democrat Party, and I just don't understand how many people of color can actually support that group, considering their history and the way that they have treated individuals who happen to have an immutable characteristic such as more melatonin in their skin than most. It galls me to think that they are that ridiculously co-opted, honestly, in terms of that particular scenario. So it's just I'm getting hit at times because I said the word at times. You know, it's one of those things that, yes, I am disgusted all the time. Let's just put it that way. All right. All the time. But the reality of it is that, where I get confused is by how many people who can listen to what the Democrats say and not read what the underlying tones actually are, and are just, they're enamored by this idea that the Democrats really care about people. They don't. They only care about two things: money and power. That's it. That's all they care about. And as long as they can get money and power, that's all they're going to do. They'll step on anyone in their quest to get money and power. And yes, I may have said melatonin. Yeah, I may have said melatonin when I actually meant melanin. Anyway, all right. Look, it looks like I've already had a little bit to drink, so I apologize for that. It's melanin, not melatonin. Thank you for calling me out on that, Coco. All right, let's go ahead and, just as an example too, to kind of bring this into the fold, as an example too, is our current resident in chief, who basically is essentially a closet racist, has been all of his life. And yeah, anyway, let's just go ahead and get things started here. He apparently was out at him going out on the trail and doing this tells you how bad off they are in the polls, because he's like really, pushing for all of this. But anyway, here you go. So this article in Red State came up. Biden messes up HBCUs, which is, historically black colleges and universities is what that stands for. And then, of course, tells another tall tale during his confused remarks where he gets off the track and so on and so forth for it. And, it's just, it's not a very good thing, to have this guy stand in front of a microphone and screw up every single time. I just don't understand. But anyway, we all know what happens when Biden panders, because that's exactly what he's doing, is he's pandering. Okay. He just continues to pander. And apparently during the speech, the first thing he did was he claimed that he was a lifetime member of the NAACP, which we know that isn't the case. He also talked about how he was endorsed by the NAACP, which every time that he had, and he expanded it saying every time he'd run. But here's the problem. The NAACP doesn't endorse candidates. In fact, they issued a statement after his remark about it. You can read the statement if you go, well, let me just go ahead and pop it open here. Yeah, so the Derek Johnson, who is currently the president and CEO of the NAACP, said made the following remark during his Friday morning interview. So this was yesterday when Vice President was there. Yesterday, former Vice President Joe Biden made a comment about the NAACP's endorsement. We want to clarify, the NAACP is a nonpartisan organization and does not endorse candidates for political office at any level. There you go. That pretty much covers it. And then he got confused, apparently, by, he was talking about the money that he was raising raising at the event, and he's like 400 million billion. What? Yeah, I'd like 400 million billion dollars. Yeah. Nope. He also, at the same time, now keep in mind, you know, they've been saying that they've been doing this student loan thing without a problem, that it wasn't in violation of the Supreme Court, and yet he bragged about defying the Supreme Court. He made the comment that apparently my administration's taken the most significant action, notwithstanding the Supreme Court trying to stop me, to provide student debt relief. And then he said, most supreme ever. What, does he think he's the most supreme person on the planet ever? I'm really confused. Of course, then again, I usually am when I hear mumbles talk. But then he goes a little bit further, and he tends to try and make jokes, of course, and he screwed up the name of the college, the HBCU, that he was talking about. In this case, it happened to be Morehouse. Biden says, I'm going Sunday to make a speech at that other place, that men's college. More, is it? Morehouse. It's unclear if he was trying to make a joke because, I mean, let's just face it, that's what he keeps trying. Keeps trying to make a joke. But anyway, and then in the next breath, he was slurring so bad that he couldn't even say HBCU appropriately. Oh, this one I gotta listen to. Let's listen to this.
This investment's helped HBCUs do everything from build student housing.
I'm sorry, what was that?
This investment's helped HBCUs do everything from build student housing.
Wait, did he say HBCU? He must be thinking he's talking to the Chinese leader of the CCP. HBCU. HBCU. Oh my gosh. That one I may have to grab and put in my HBCU. Zhu. Zhao. Oh my God. Oh. Okay. Now, one thing that I always want to comment on, because of the fact that he constantly does this, and it's an indication that he is not, that he obviously is not the one in charge. It is a clear indication of this. And he goes, he ad-libs things all the time, and he talks about, well, I'm going to get into trouble if I stay out here. Hello? You're the effing president, dude. You're the effing president. If you can't be the one to say what goes on, how in the hell can anyone think that you're actually in charge? Oh, I'm going to get in trouble if I stay out here too long. Oh, I'm going to get in trouble if I take questions. I'm going to get in trouble if I get off track. You're going to get in trouble for what? You're the guy. You're the man at the top. Oh my gosh. Anyway, so he, apparently he pandered a little bit and then went and shuffled off stage. Let's take a listen to that. Oh, here he goes with the, he's got to look. Oh, I got to look out there. See, do I see any friendly people? Oh, how about some ghosts? Okay, I'm going to, yeah. Oh, yeah. All right, okay. Now I'm going to slide behind the flags and get off. Oh, yep. Got to go and take a look. Can I see? Oh my God. You're the boss, man. Jeez, take control of the frickin' reins. Well, anyway. We are in such sad shape, folks. We are in so bad shape with this guy. I can't even imagine. I don't even, I'm having a hard time remembering what it was like before. Well, before he came into office. I mean, Trump is becoming a really far off memory for me to remember. I'm having a hard time remembering him. This guy is such a freaking moron. My mom asked me one time, she's like, why do you rip on Biden so much? And I'm like, well, it's easy. But more importantly, I've never not liked somebody so bad that no matter what comes out of their mouth, no matter what actions they do, no matter the entire situation of their existence, this guy, I'm telling you, he could disappear tomorrow and I'd be dancing a jig. I'm sorry. It just, he needs to get out of public life. He needs to go into a home and get taken care of. The guy is completely gone. He has oatmeal for brains, and it's clear that I don't want him holding the nuclear codes at all. At all. Anyway. All right. Well, let's move on to what other people think. I know what I think, but let's move on to what other people think, especially those who have voted for Biden in 2020. According to the Daily Caller, this article in the Daily Caller, some people who voted for Biden in 2020, they explain why they're backing Trump in 2024. So the New York Times Siena College survey that was released on Monday, taken across Arizona, Georgia, Nevada, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, found that 14% of those people who had backed Biden in 2020 won't do so in this cycle. Now, that 14% is important here, people. It's important. Why? Because that 14% of the people polled after 2020 said that they would switch their vote had they known about the Hunter Biden laptop. And that would have been enough to make the difference. Okay, 14%. Now, I'm not saying these are the same 14%. Please don't read that into my words. I am simply saying it's kind of ironic that 14% of people polled who had voted for him in 2020 are not going to vote for him in 2024. And that same 14% would have been possibly a flipped vote in 2020 had the Hunter Biden laptop story been allowed to live and breathe on that. So a couple people, I'm going to read a few people's comments here, but this is one of the people who responded that they voted for Biden's last time. He is Frederick Westbrook, who's a retired hotel worker in Las Vegas, told the New York Times that voting for Biden last cycle was the biggest mistake of my life. He also added that while he still believes that Trump has a big mouth and is not a nice person, his financial situation has made him consider backing the former president. Westbrook said, everything is about the economy. I don't really trust Donald Trump at all. I just think housing, food, my car, my insurance, every single piece of living has gone up. Pretty much the same thought. I'm kind of right there with you. I've made it clear. I don't think that I would ever, if I were to meet Trump and hang out with, had the opportunity to hang out with Trump, probably wouldn't be on a personal level. That being said, here's another person, Amelia Earwood, a 47-year-old safety trainer at the U.S. Postal Service, was also critical of Trump, but said, and this is the key, but said she's voting on his policies, and I think he could straighten this country out, while Biden made a ginormous mess out of it. She's from Georgia. She cited inflation, illegal immigration, and Biden's recently delaying of sending arms to Israel as reasons for her dissatisfaction. Virginia Ferris of Wisconsin told the New York Times that Biden's policies of overspending and printing money are attributable to her children's financial struggles. And she is the 54-year-old who is planning to vote for Trump. Folks, people are unhappy. And here we have a 25-year-old. So here they're demonstrating that there's a lot of variation in the types of people that are doing this, or that are responding this way. So here's a 25-year-old marketing professional in Atlanta. His name's Jared Johnson. He also has reservations about Trump, but told the outlet that he'll support him in November. Johnson said, "Our conversations are suddenly less about what's happening overseas and more about how we are struggling here too." A 60-year-old counselor for veterans in Georgia, Christopher Sheffield, will similarly back Trump due to the conflict overseas, according to the outlet. Sheffield told the New York Times that Trump's stance on race is concerning, which is actually false. But anyway, he plans to vote for him. Sheffield said, "When I look at Biden, he looks weak. With North Korea, Putin, and all those boys ready to act, I think they will be a little bit more reluctant to challenge Trump than they would with Biden." Carolyn Leavitt, who is the Trump campaign national press secretary, told the Daily Caller News Foundation in a statement that Joe Biden's campaign should be terrified. Yes, he should. The New York Times survey, of course, found Trump leading Biden in all of the swing states polled, except for Michigan, where the president was ahead by just 1 point among likely voters. Now, when they're in that 1 point, folks, you got to remember, when they're in that 1 point, that's within the margin of error. Okay? So let's just keep that in mind. Anyway, and it's not just voters like that. CNN, of course, has been talking about these changes for a long time. And Trump has more than doubled, according to CNN, more than doubled his support among black voters. So it used to be at 9%, and now it's at 22% in terms of black voters. Gee, I wonder why. And Harry Enton, who is the senior data analyst at CNN, he reacted this week saying that Donald Trump's historic support among black voters is the best performance for a Republican in 2 generations. Donald Trump was just 9% of the vote in the polls 4 years ago, and now he's at 22%. And he's saying, if this holds through the general election, this would be by far the best performance for a Republican among black voters in 2 generations. Yeah. Things are not looking good for Joe Biden. They just aren't. All right. You see this fantastic, wonderful shirt that I'm wearing. This is one of many of the shirts that I wear throughout the program, throughout the week, as I've been going and putting things out there. Okay. But you can get shirts like mine that are patriotic. These ones are the cotton polos. I love these. They're very soft. They're true to size. You can get yours at theflagshirt.com. It's a real simple website to remember. Theflagshirt, all one word, .com. Theflagshirt.com. And you can go there and you can get wonderful shirts like these for men, women, kids. They've got accessories like one of my hats that I have, one of my cowboy hats, the bright, you've seen it a long time ago, but you've seen it. It's the bright American flag cowboy hat. That one you can get there. They are just all over American patriot stuff. And I'm going to give you a special award If you go to flagshirt.americanperspective.online, you can pick up a coupon. Okay. You can pick up a coupon for $5 off your order by going to flagshirt.americanperspective.online. You get that coupon code, you put it in at checkout, and you'll get $5 off your order. Go to flagshirt.americanperspective.online to get your promo code for $5 off at theflagshirt.com. That's theflagshirt.com. Get yourself patriotized. All right. So, we keep kind of digging at things and listening to stuff and hearing about things, and we keep digging and things just keep coming up. I can't wait until the debates. In fact, somebody asked me if I was going to stream the debates. I'm still considering it, but I did talk it over with Mrs. Whiskey, and she said you should. So we'll see if that's going to happen. I would say right now I'm probably in the like 75-25 percentile. I kind of have to see about it. 75% chance of likely streaming it, and of course adding what would be considered as color commentary, U.S. color commentary. But before we get into that, into the debates, I just want to say it's kind of interesting that the Biden campaign is doing everything that they can in order to steer these debates into their favor. Into their favor. Gee, I wonder why they're doing that. Maybe because they're not as confident of their man? Well, check this out. The the Commission on Presidential Debates, the CPD co-founder, says that the Biden campaign urged CNN to promise that RFK Jr. would not participate in the debates. Co-founder Frank Fahrenkopf, claimed that President Joe Biden's campaign urged CNN to promise that they would not let Robert F. Kennedy in regardless to its June 27th debate. Fahrenkopf also implied that Kennedy could file a lawsuit, by the way, given the potential violation of Federal Election Commission rules. Oh, gee. Like the Biden admin cares about election laws and other laws and constitutionality, separation of powers, any of that other shit. But anyway, the third party candidate right now does not have the required precursor qualifications to actually make the debates right now. But apparently Kennedy posted on X that he is going to meet the criteria before the June 20th deadline. Now, the June 20th, or the criteria, is essentially meaning that he needs to have at least 15%. He needs to be polling at least 15% in at least 4 different national polls. Okay. And he has to qualify for enough state ballots to reach 270 electoral votes. Now, I keep seeing every once in a while, I haven't really been commenting on it because, again, he's working on qualifying for the ballots. But I keep seeing every once in a while, I'll see a state pop up that says, hey, I'm qualified, or a article that pops up that says RFK Jr. has qualified for another state ballot, so on and so forth. So he's working. He actually is working and chipping away for this. And if he can do it before June 20th, man, that would be fantastic if he could do that. And then, of course, sue the Biden administration and CNN if they don't let him if they don't let him in. Now, Fahrenkopf apparently used to be a lawyer. He doesn't practice anymore, but that's where he got the idea, saying that, yeah, he could actually potentially, sue under Federal Election Commission rules. Yeah, that ought to be fun. Anyway, the Biden administration is apparently afraid of RFK Jr. They think they can take on Trump, but they're afraid to have RFK Jr. in there because RFK Jr., even though a lot of people are like, yeah, RFK Jr. is going to take a lot of Trump voters. No, he's not. He's not going to take Trump voters. He might take some independents who may have been sitting on the fence, but he's not going to take Trump voters. If anybody is going to vote for RFK Jr., it's going to be Democrats. Clearly Democrats. Well, Trump threw out the gauntlet a couple of ways. He threw out the gauntlet, first of all, saying that he was going to ask to have Joe Biden drug tested, okay, before the debates. But also, Trump threw out the gauntlet in the fact that he has claimed to have accepted an additional 2 debates beyond the 2 that the Biden administration has already agreed to. Trump reportedly has said that he is agreeing to the additional 2, one being hosted by Fox News, and the other one being hosted, which is the 4th one, being hosted by NBC and Telemundo. The Biden campaign has refused on both counts. They don't want to have more than 2 debates. Gee, I wonder why. Again, they're not that confident in their boy. I'm telling you. And when talking about Joe Biden and possible drug use to get him excited, okay? I'm hearing reports, although they're unconfirmed, and even the guy that said it seems a little hesitant to actually prove it on camera. There was a Republican representative who basically claims that that Trump was drugged up, or no, sorry, not Trump, that Biden was drugged up during the State of the Union, and he supposedly is still a practicing surgeon, by the way. But anyway, we'll see. We'll just have to see. We will have to see what goes on with that. I'm sure that he is, and in fact, that one representative, and it's not even confirmed, so why I'm even talking about it is even questionable at best anyway, because, I pride myself on more accurate information. But hey, he said it on national television, so he's alleging that they shot Joe Biden up with something to help him deal with the bright lights and to get his energy levels up, because there's no way, according to him, that someone with what he presumes is the president's mental condition would have been able to stand for 2 hours under bright lights to do all of that like he did on the State of the Union. Well, we'll have to see. We'll have to see if any of that comes true. But yeah, Joe taking a drug test, like 3 Chevy says on Rumble, Joe will never take a drug test. Come on, man. Yeah, he's not going to happen. Not going to happen. Anyway, well, like I said before, we keep digging and we keep finding things. We keep digging and we keep uncovering stuff. Here. If you recall, there was a conversation. Now, granted, this wasn't much of a dig, okay? This wasn't much of a real big dig, other than the fact that Dan Goldman, one of the more stupid people in Congress, not saying that there are a lot of intelligent people in Congress, but I can tell you that Dan Goldman ranks in one of the categories of stupid. He basically admitted to the fact that he was coaching Michael Cohen and, taking care of Michael Cohen for Michael Cohen's testimony in the quote unquote hush money Stormy Daniels trial. Well, now the National Pulse is reporting on some other stuff that's kind of interesting in that whole thing. So Representative Goldman appears to have sent over $160,000 in checks to the home address of the daughter, Lauren Mershon, the daughter of Judge Mershon, who presides over the Manhattan trial. Now, what's questionable here is that he sent them to her home, not to the business that she runs and takes care of. Now, last Tuesday, Goldman acknowledged preparing the disgraced serial perjurer, which he is, Michael Cohen, for his cross-examination. And he failed miserably at that. So obviously Dan Goldman didn't prepare him very well enough. And Judge Mershon, of course, has placed a gag order on President Trump. We already know that. And his daughter and her company, which again, keep in mind, Dan Goldman sent the checks directly to her home, not her company, but her home. And this is where things kind of are a little odd. It's apparently a close personal relationship that seems to exist between Goldman and Lauren Mershon. And that suggests, again, a clear conflict of interest. That he should potentially recuse himself for this. They've already pushed, the former president's legal team has already pushed the judge several times to recuse himself. And Laura Loomer was the first one to uncover Goldman's Federal Election Commission filings showing that his campaign sent the payments to her personal home address in Richmond, Virginia, and not a single check from the Goldman campaign was actually sent to the Authentic Campaign's office address in Chicago. His last public payment to Authentic Campaigns was made just days before the start of the hush money trial. These folks, I'm telling you, these folks, they all know each other. It is a form of nepotism within the Democrat Party. If you ever watch them, they all like travel from job to job. When the Democrat Party is in power, you'll get these people who move into government. And then when they are done with government, they tend to move out and they go to tech companies and other Democrat run organizations. And that's what they do. It's all the same people who just slide in and out of government, and they just keep doing this over and over and over again. And this is part of the bureaucracy that we need to be very well aware of, and that we continue to have problems with all of this. They're just one big blob. That's what they are. Okay. So one thing that has apparently become very clear is the Democrat liberal hold in our media. Okay. But here's the thing, is that the internal people to the media haven't really started to come out about it until now. First, we had that gentleman at NPR who talked about his complete career stint at NPR that, demonstrates the liberal bias and the leftist bias that goes on there. Now, we already know on this program and several others that, the New York Times, the There's several others like the Washington Post and other places. They all have a liberal slant. We already know this. But to sit here and confirm it, okay, by someone inside just basically removes that conspiracy theory with that. So apparently, ex-New York Times reporter Nellie Bowles, who is a reporter, I said that already. She issues a warning on liberal media and reveals why she had to leave. She says that only fools would not be questioning the progressive liberal agenda in cities like San Francisco. So she has a book out called Morning After the Revolution, where she addresses a number of topics like COVID origins, youth transgender procedures, and cancel culture that she says that she was previously not allowed to investigate and cover. She told America's Newsroom on Wednesday, as a reporter at the Times, it was very frustrating to have to put blinders on my curiosity. So I set out to write this book and ended up quitting the paper. In each chapter is a little bit of a journey and a feature of what I kind of would have written had I stayed on the staff. She also appeared on the Brian Kilmeade show as well, and she explained that working for the New York Times was initially her dream job, but she quickly found herself in trouble for trying to report on topics that were, according to colleagues, beyond the purview of a Times reporter. As a result, she began The Free Press with Barry Weiss. Apparently her wife also. Bowles explained that she didn't have a goal of changing minds, but simply to raise questions and prompt a discussion about the impact of progressive policies. She says, I'm from San Francisco. I've lived there my whole life. If you're not looking around and seeing the streets and starting to question some of the ideas that got us to that place, I think you're fooling yourself. I think you're an absolute fool if you don't do that. She identifies herself as neither conservative nor liberal, simply fair-minded. So here we have yet another individual who has come out from under the liberal mainstream media umbrella and has literally stated that they were muzzled to go after some of the stories and talk about some of the stories and create things from that, not from a liberal slant, but to just investigate and apparently bring the truth. Not the saying that I believe her in any way, shape, or form, other than the fact that, she has a book out about it. So hopefully that would be the case. But anyway, one of the things that we've been told about in terms of the COVID debacle, we're still paying for that. The whole concept that masks work to prevent airborne viruses, that, the clot shot worked, that it prevented transmission, even though it didn't. And now we're starting to find out that, yeah, there is a risk, heart risk on it. But now there's even more information that's coming out. You'll recognize, if you're on Rumble, you'll recognize the face of this guy, this coming from the Federalist. This guy was one of the quote-unquote COVID experts. His name is Francis Collins, and he's finally admitting that there actually was no science behind the idea of 6-foot distancing. Yeah, no kidding. So apparently, let me just see here. You know, again, a lot of people who are sitting here and talking about and looking back on this whole thing. Yeah, it's just mind-boggling how much stuff they actually got wrong. So, if you recall, back on March 22nd in 2020, the CDC issued the, guidance on this. And one research paper that was published in the NIH National Library of Medicine was titled 6 feet apart or 6 feet under. And just beneath that was some other things about the LGBTQ community, talking about COVID-19 and so on and so forth. But Collins, along with Dr. Anthony Fauci, made quite a bit of money, of course, on it. And according to some documents that were, or testimony that came out, a staff memo on Collins's interview, he had an interview where he actually admitted that no science ever supported the 6 foot rule. But yet, the entire time we were told, oh yeah, 6 foot rule. 6 foot rule. And that all of the things that we talked about, all of the things like wearing the masks and, make sure that you do, all these social distancing and all these other things, prevented deaths, etc. And here, a COVID subcommittee staff member asked the good doctor, is that I do not recall or I do not see any evidence supporting 6 feet. Collins replied, I did not see evidence, but I'm not sure I would have been shown evidence at that point. Staffer asked, since then, it's been an awfully large topic. Have you seen any evidence since then supporting the 6 feet? And the NIH director said, no. There was no evidence. There was no evidence of the 6 foot. There was very little evidence that children had to be separated and masked up for 8 hours a day, that was going to be healthy. In fact, children, we were told, were at risk when in actuality, they were one of the lowest risk categories. When you go back and take a look, the actual death rate for young kids who were forced to take this vaccine, forced to mask up for 8 hours a day, forced to be out of schools, was less than 0.001%. Was very, very, this whole thing just, this was the start of the teardown, folks, of our belief in society and our governmental institutions. This was just the start. When the truth started coming out about these things, and I am telling you, as far as I'm concerned, you're going to find that in, probably less than 10 years, especially now that it's been on record, AstraZeneca's clot shot actually has some negative effects, including death. I'm betting that within 10 years, you're going to see all of the ambulance chasing lawyer commercials on TV. I've been telling Mrs. Whiskey about this all the time. And I've been saying, hey, you know what? Sooner or later, you're going to see on the television, you're going to see those ads. Have you been hurt by a COVID vaccine? Did you get whatever list of freaking, secondary infections, bad whatever, all the medical mumbo jumbo that they put in. Just think of the mesothelioma ads and replace the words for the mesothelioma and the asbestos and just put in the COVID vaccines. I'm telling you, just put it all in there and you've got it going. I can almost guarantee you that stuff is going to happen. Now, he also came clean as well, which this is another piece, but he also came clean on the idea that it came from the lab. He changed his tune. So the staffer apparently asked Collins about it, and he goes, is the possibility of a lab leak a conspiracy theory? He tried to avoid it by saying, well, you have to define what you mean by a lab leak. And the staffer pressed on it and said, putting aside de novo, the possibility of a laboratory or research-related accident, a researcher doing something in the lab, getting infected with a virus, and then sparking the pandemic. Is that scenario a conspiracy theory? Collins said, not at this point. And the memo notes the investigation into the origins of COVID-19 is ongoing, and there's no incontrovertible proof of either a zoonotic or lab origin, which is crap. We know it's a lab. And yet the debate is so charged that Americans were censored on social media, and it led to a change in the way the scientific debate was conducted. Collins is now acknowledging that the origins of the virus is still unsettled science. Folks, came from a lab accident. They were fiddle farting around with something that they shouldn't, trying to make a weaponized version, and it came from that lab because one, or a few, I should say, but at least one of their scientists contracted the damn thing while they were in the lab. They were looking to gain a vaccine patent in the month prior to when the whole thing, the pandemic, came to light in the public eye. It came from the lab, from their lax security. Whether it was an accident or whether it was done on purpose, I'm not entirely sure. I'm not sold on anything at this point. I do believe that it could potentially go either way. But I do believe, me personally, I do believe that the purpose of the lab was an attempt to get rid of or release it on their population to help thin out their aging population, because China, as I've pointed out in this program, has a problem with the replacement of their workers. They are running out of money because of all the aging population that is over there that is sucking their retirement funds dry. They're in the same boat as what we are with our Social Security. And I think it's potentially was their original intent. But again, I don't have any necessary proof to say that, but just seems kind of coincidental, and I don't believe in coincidences is how that goes. Now, we haven't heard a lot from the House Subcommittee on Oversight, okay, but apparently, they had those wonderful accounts that they were pointing out with Joe Biden, Jim Biden's wife passing $400,000 or whatever as a, quote, loan payment over to Joe. and so on and so forth. Well, I guess Comer has now, according to PJ Media, he has now subpoenaed another set of bank records from a undisclosed bank because they have unearthed a new set of financial accounts that are tied to the Biden family investigation. This fresh subpoena is targeting some financial information in regards to Jim Biden, Sarah Biden, and of course Hunter Biden. And Comer told Maria Bartiromo on Fox Business about it, and he said this is the result of many documents that Devon Archer has turned over. You remember Devon Archer? Devon Archer, the partner of Hunter Biden. Yeah. So he hopes that this is going to help finish up the entire report, and they'll be able to provide a report to the public on all of this. But Comer has claimed that it's unbelievable. I don't think you would find very many people that have $1 billion net worth that have as many different bank accounts as this Biden family had. Many of those bank accounts were actually tied to shell companies, he claims. And those companies had a sole purpose to launder the money that the Bidens were receiving from China, from Romania, from Russia. And never one time through the course of this entire investigation, even during the depositions with Hunter Biden and the transcribed interview with Jim Biden, were they able to answer exactly what the family did to receive the money. Definitely not. Karen points out, did Biden try to claim presidential immunity last week? That was in reference to the Robert Hur audio tapes, and he did claim presidential immunity, but as I covered in a couple of other episodes, I think it was yesterday and the day before, the chances of him actually getting it are probably going to be fairly slim in terms of it. So, yeah. Anyway, I mean, this is, to be honest, this kind of story is about dead. I mean, the people who believe it are going to believe it. The people who don't are going to hang on to their misguided fantasy unicorn beliefs. And yeah, it's just going to be one of those things that I don't think it's going to be any kind of like an October surprise or anything of that nature. This guy is the most corrupt we've probably seen in the White House, at least in modern history, if not all of history. And yeah, so it's just a bit of a mess. Speaking of wasteful spending and money going places that it shouldn't be, the Government Accountability Office released a report that details up to $500 billion in annual fraud. Now, for anybody who actually believes that government is able to accomplish something well, like can actually take something over and run it better than private business can, you're completely off base and are a complete and utter idiot. I'm sorry, you just are. The federal government is not an effective steward of our tax money. It never has been, because it's part of a third payer system. Milton Friedman pointed this out. When you're part of a third payer system, you don't care how much money is spent. You don't care about the quality that's being put forth, because it's not your money. It's not my money. It's not my services. I'm not getting the services or gaining the services. Milton Friedman was right about this. And that's exactly what happens whenever we deal with government like this. Now, the GAO released a April 16th report titled Fraud Risk Management, that apparently is the first comprehensive government-wide review of fraud since the nation's founding. At least that's what they claim. The report examined instances of fraud between fiscal years 2018 and 2022 that concluded the federal government could lose between $233 billion and $521 billion annually to fraud. The most conservative estimate of $233 billion in fraudulent payments per year means fraudsters stole at least $1.165 trillion from taxpayers over the 5-year period that was studied. According to the GAO Forensic Audits and Investigative Service Director Rebecca Shea, the top of our range is greater than the budget for all but the top 5 agencies, and the bottom of our range is larger than the 9th largest federal agency. The Fraud Reduction and Data Analytics Act of 2015 requires the Office of Management and Budget to establish guidelines for federal agencies to identify and assess fraud risks, to design and implement anti-fraud control activities. However, when asked on the GAO's Watchdog Report podcast about how well agencies are following the law, Shea stated that insufficient progress had been made, and it became really apparent with the significant fraud that we saw in some of the pandemic programs. Yeah. She elaborated, there are known fraud risks associated with increasing spending and quick disbursements, such as with the natural disasters that we've had and the financial crisis, but then most recently, the pandemic program spending. In other words, when government decides to open up the pocketbook and send out a crap ton of money as quick as possible, fraud happens. Because you're not paying attention, folks. The GAO report found between $100 million and $135 million in fraudulent unemployment insurance payments between April 2020 and May of 2023, as well as $200 billion in potentially fraudulent pandemic-related business loans from the Small Business Administration as of May 2023. The GAO has also reported an additional $4.41 billion to $7.31 billion of confirmed fraud identified by the Office of, by the OMB, and I'm trying to remember where that is. By the OMB for each of the 5 years of study, and $6.6 billion to $19.7 billion annually identified by the Council of Inspectors General on integrity and efficiency. Oh my gosh, folks. I'm sorry, this is just making me sick. Part of that $34 trillion that we are in debt has gone completely to fraud, folks. How anybody can trust that government knows how to spend our money and spend it efficiently is completely beyond me. Oh my gosh. Anyway. All right, I got to take a second. All right. We have got to get government reined in. We just do. I'm sorry. Oh, and thank you, Outlaw Dogs, the Office of Business and Management. How many freaking watchdog organizations do we have? I don't even want to know. I don't even want to ask that question because I'm sure somebody will go and research it and tell me how many wasteful spending operations we've got. Anyway. All right. last article or last conversation that I want to talk about, or at least I think it will be, and then we'll move into this week's question of the week. The fraudulent left, the hypocritical left, the dumbass left has decided to grab onto another fairly innocent thing, I think, and turn it into a huge deal. I wasn't necessarily going to converse about this right away because I kind of wanted to get an idea of what actually had occurred. Again, kind of applying the Bongino 72-hour rule to it, but considering the fact that it's been all over the socials and everything else, I kind of sort of have no other choice. So the left is going nuts over the fact that Justice Alito, apparently who has a flag out in front of his home and flies it all the time, at one point during or after the 2020 debacle, his wife reportedly, at least this is what Alito claims, his wife flew the flag upside down in response to a sign that a neighbor had put out claiming that she, as well as Ginny Thomas, were involved in and partially responsible for January 6th. Now, the problem here is they keep talking about, the left. I'm talking about the left here. They keep talking about how flying an upside down flag is disrespectful. It's illegal. It's, any number of things, while completely ignoring the fact that they've used the flag in many, many cases in actual disrespectful ways, like burning it in protest, throwing it on the ground and stepping on it, removing it from flagpoles at universities to put up Palestinian flags. So here's the thing. Flying the flag upside down with the union down is a considerable sign of distress. It is also to show that the place or the position where the flag is being flown is in imminent danger. Okay? And the left is freaking out about this. Now, what caused his wife to fly the flag upside down? I don't know. I know that there are people out there in my area that I've seen that have had flags upside down. They held them that way when Biden got elected in 2020. There are several reports. I walked through many and just doing a search where having it upside down has been, reported across the country. But here's the thing. It's taken the left 3 years to find this. And the reason being is because they are basically saying that this is proof, irrefutable proof, that Justice Alito is going to rule in Trump's favor. What they don't seem to get is there's 8 other members of that court. And even if he does rule in their favor or in Trump's favor, and the rest don't, it's not going to matter. Not to mention the fact that, I'm sorry, but, your wife does have the ability of the First Amendment, and she does have the ability of free speech. He doesn't necessarily control his wife, which is another part of the hypocritical left going off on this, because to them, no man is supposed to control a woman. You can't touch my body. You can't touch my womb. You can't touch whether I have a pregnant kid or decide to kill it. The thing about it is that she responded to a very incendiary allegation that she, as well as Ginny Thomas, were part of the whole non-stream or sorry. That's weird. Come on. Anyway. The whole thing about this that, people just don't seem to understand is there's a lot of people out there who do actually believe that this country is in trouble. They are completely in trouble. We are in trouble. And the reason why we are in trouble is because of the Democrats. Because of them doing things and saying things and believing in things that are literally just not true. They are just not true. And them having this meltdown is just proof that they don't understand the reality of the world. You can have opinions about things and still be a judge. Because if that was the case, every single one of our judges, including Merchan, Engoron, Chutkin, all of those things, all of those judges should be subject to the exact same thing that Alito is being put under. A judge can have an opinion. That doesn't necessarily mean that they are, shall we say, influenced adversely by that opinion when it comes to specific constitutionality of cases. This is ridiculous to have that kind of flippant attitude with the American flag. And, oh, by the way, just flying the American flag, according to the left, is like triggering because, it symbolizes racism. It symbolizes whatever the latest, greatest thing is to get insulted about. I got the flag right here, boys. Got a representation on my clothes. Guess what? U.S. code says I can't use the flag as clothing. This isn't this isn't a actual flag. It is a representation of the flag. So you can sit here and bitch about the fact that his wife flipped the flag upside down for a short period of time. Or you can actually pay attention to the real crap that's going on in this country that is causing us to have high inflation, high interest rates, a shitty economy, high credit card debt, housing that is out of control, that people can't buy any houses anymore because of all the combined factors. High prices on food. High prices on gas. Let's focus on the real issues. Not whether or not somebody flipped the flag over for a short period of time, when it's not even illegal to do so. The left concentrates on the wrong things constantly. Okay. Let's go ahead and take care of the question of the week. All right, tonight's question of the week comes from the venerable, the magnanimous, the fantastic whiskey warrior, Buddy Weiser. Buddy asks, or writes, I should say, "Good day to you, my friend. I hope this finds you well and with stout spirits." I don't know. Is this stout enough? I mean, is that stout enough? Anyway, sorry, I digress. Thank you for considering my query. Here it is. Where did the position of governor originate? Who was the first governor of of a U.S. state? And has this person always been elected instead of appointed? Please educate your viewers about this subject. Thanks again, Buddy Weiser. Well, thank you for the question, Buddy. That is fantastic. All right. So the term governor and the original position harkens way back in the day. Way back in the day. And I'm talking like even farther back than the colonial days. This goes back all the way to ancient times. And the governor was generally, in the olden days, the person who was appointed by whoever the ruler was at the time to take care of a specific region. They were to govern the ruling party's desires and needs and take care of things in the place of the actual king or queen or whoever. Okay. And that same idea came over here when the colonies were established and were dealing in Britain. So over in the colonies, or during the colonial times, we actually had governors in the British colonies that were here that eventually became states. Now, they were called royal governors, and they were appointed by the British Crown to represent the executive power of the English king. Okay. The very first royal governor that was appointed, according to history, is the governor of the Massachusetts Bay Colony, and his name was John Winthrop, and he was appointed in 1629. Now, during the American Revolution, okay, the idea of a governor, rather than being appointed but turning into more of an elected official, began to really start taking shape. And right after the Constitution was actually written and put together, okay, right after the Constitution was put together, they actually elected the very first governors, and they helped, the framing of the Constitution helped frame the state constitutions, because if you ever look at like the federal Constitution and then the state constitutions, you can see that there are various similarities between the two. Now, keep in mind, of course, that the original Constitution actually has some of its roots drawn from the Virginia Commonwealth, with some of the concepts and ideas that were ingrained in the Constitution from Virginia. That's because James Madison came from Virginia, and was a ardent follower of like Thomas Jefferson. And so when Jefferson helped write the Virginia Commonwealth papers, I can't remember right off the top of my head what they were called. I don't know if it was a constitution or not. But anyway, those rules and laws that were written there, several of them were brought up and been a part of the U.S. Constitution when it was written. Now, The very first elected governor of a state was John Hancock. And he was elected to be the governor of the state of Massachusetts in 1780. 1780. Now, we've actually kind of in the course of history have actually kind of modified the governorship, but as you'll notice, most of the time the governor acts very similarly to the president in terms of the president and the Congress. You have the governor and the state legislature. And again, that was patterned off of the idea that the federal government was designed in three separate powers. And so that's kind of where the governors came from and the governorships started coming from. And that, I think, kind of covers everything, because you asked the first governor of the U.S. state. That was John Hancock of Massachusetts. He was the first one elected. So they weren't, I mean, again, the idea of governors being elected didn't happen until the American Revolution, which kind of leads and indicates a key point in all of this, is that the founding fathers really didn't like the idea of an overarching like king or something along those lines. So, but anyway, hopefully that answers your question for it. If you would like to put in a question for the question of the week, make sure you do that by sending me the question to fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. You can also send in Pet of the Week, which is my Wednesday segment. I don't currently have one and would be welcome to get any of those coming in on Wednesday nights. And you can do that to fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. All right, folks, that is the end of our program. I do thank you for hanging out and for coming. I love my Whiskey Warrior P1s. You guys have a great rest of your weekend. And we will see you Monday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. Good night, everybody.
The previous broadcast was produced and is owned by Active Eye Media LLC. All rights reserved.